Hello and welcome to Colred Plays Raid Shadow Legends. I am Colred, and in today's video we are going to be addressing the announcement by Plarium that we have a new fusion champion coming in August. His name is Emic Trunkheart. He is a Void Legendary HP based champion from the Sylvan Watchers faction. And we're just going to review his kit. We're going to talk about whether or not he is worth going for, and then what value you might get out of him, where you might want to play him. So you can make the best decision for your account. Now, just so you know, I am not part of the content creator program. I'm a new content creator, so we don't quite have the following and the history yet to get into the content creator program. So I don't get any advanced warning about this. So I'm going to be looking at this champion today. I have watched a video or two from some other content creators about him, but I'm going to be giving you my assessment as a free-to-play player on whether or not this champion is worth going for. Okay, so let's go ahead and look at Emic Trunkheart. We have a poster here, and this is what he is going to look like. I like his shield. Those little claws on the shield do move when they're animated, so that's pretty awesome. Let me go ahead and get myself out of the way here. Okay, and now we can take a look at his skills. So let's check out the A1 first. Earthroot Tendril attacks one enemy, increases the value of all shield buffs on this champion by 25%. Also increases the value of any shield buffs on the ally with the lowest HP by 25%. So right away, we get an unusual skill here on the A1 Earthroot Tendril, and that is increasing the values of shields that are already up. As far as I know, there are only one or maybe two other champions in the game who do this. At least only one that I know of who's very valuable for that skill. And that is Under Priest Brogni. He grows shields based on damage that he does. So this obviously doesn't grow the shield on everybody, just on Trunkheart and one other ally, but it is the ally with the lowest HP. So he's going to help your weakest champion or your squishiest champion be a little bit more survivable, and that's pretty cool. Another thing I'm noticing about this skill right away is that the 4 books that go into this skill only increase damage. Now, chances are he's not going to be a hard-hitting champion. Most HP-based champions are not. So you might be able to save some books on this champion. If you can get the books into the skills that you need them and potentially skip this A1 altogether, that might allow you to save as many as 4 books, which would be pretty good. All right, let's look at the A2 Vinequake. It's a AoE, attacks all enemies, places a shield buff on all allies equal to 30% of this champion's max HP for 2 turns. And then decreases the cooldown of all ally skills except this champion's by 1 turn. That is on a 4-turn cooldown, but it books down to a 3-turn cooldown. Now, this is an outstanding skill. First of all, it's an AoE attack. AoE attacks are always great. In wave content, you can always consider putting a stun set or a provoke set on a champion that has attack all enemies. Just allows you to get more CC out there and control the waves a little bit better. In addition, this also places a shield buff on all allies equal to 30% of this champion's max HP for 2 turns on a 3-turn cooldown. That's an excellent shield, especially considering that this is an HP-based champion, so we're going to assume he's going to have a nice, healthy HP pool to build off of. The third aspect of this skill is even crazier. This decreases the cooldown of all ally skills by 1 turn. This is like Painkeeper's ability. Now, Painkeeper has this ability on a 4-turn cooldown, I believe, where she decreases the cooldown of all ally skills by 1 turn, and that is the entire ability. And Painkeeper is a void rare, but she's a very useful void rare. So this guy actually has that skill on top of an AoE and a shield buff for all allies. So this seems like a very powerful skill that's going to give you a lot of versatility. You can use this in a lot of places. So you can use him as a shielder, you can use him as an AoE, maybe CC champion, or you can use him as a ally cooldown reduction champion, or all 3. All on 1 skill. Pretty solid. Now let's take a look at the A3 Trunkheart's Sanctuary. This starts on a 6-turn cooldown, but it looks like it books down to a 4-turn cooldown. The first part of the skill places an unkillable buff on all allies for 2 turns. So right away, Trunkheart is throwing his hat into the ring as an unkillable clan boss champion. This is the same duration of buff and same cooldown as Helicath's block damage skill. So Helicath obviously is one of the best champions for helping to create an unkillable clan boss team, and it looks like Trunkheart's going to match that ability. Unkillable buffs are different than block damage buffs, but they both can be used to create the unkillable clan boss composition. The second part also places a taunt buff and a shield buff on this champion for 2 turns. The value of the shield is equal to 30% of this champion's max HP. So this champion has at least 2 ways to get a shield onto him. Obviously, on his A2, the shield goes on to everybody, and then on the A3, he puts a shield on himself. Both shields can be increased by the A1. So he's going to be very survivable. And the taunt is very interesting. The way a taunt works is it works kind of like a provoke, but it's a buff instead of a debuff. So what happens is when he has the taunt buff up on him, every champion on the enemy team has to attack him like they've been provoked, and they can only use their A1s. The only thing that supersedes a taunt is a provoke from another champion. So if you have a provoke out there, that champion would ignore the taunt and would instead attack the champion that landed the provoke debuff. Now, just so you know, and I'm not 100% sure about this, but I'm fairly certain, because I've seen some experiments by other content creators, that taunts work on the Demon Lord clan boss, whereas provokes do not. Okay, so what that means is, if that's true, if that's correct, then the clan boss will always target Trunkheart if he's using his taunt in the right speed tune, right? So you can guarantee that he becomes the stun target. And what that basically means is that's one of the steps to going affinity friendly, is making sure that the stun target isn't changing or that every stun target is being cleansed properly. Now, what's interesting about this is it is possible to have a stun target who stays stunned through his next turn. You don't necessarily have to cleanse the stun as long as you account for that in the speed tune. So you could potentially run Trunkheart with a with a cleanser, or maybe even without a cleanser, and depending on the speed tune you're using, both could potentially work. Now, we'd have to actually experiment a little bit to make sure that that's true, but it feels that way, or at least the potential for that is there. Okay, now let's go ahead and look at the passive. So Entanglement, when attacked while under a shield buff, which he's pretty much always going to have, has a 50% chance of increasing the cooldown of a random skill on the attacker by 2 turns. Already, this is a fairly interesting skill, right? This is basically a skill lockout for 2 turns, or you increase the cooldown by 2 turns on a particular skill. It looks like it books to a 75% chance. That is not a viable skill for clan boss. The 3 other skills feel like good clan boss skills. This feels like a PvP skill, right? You want to lock out skills either in wave content or in PvP. So this could potentially be used in those 2 places. This occurs once per attack, that's fine. Whenever an ally's HP drops below 20%, increases the damage dealt by that ally by 20%. Now, this is an interesting second component to this passive. You can think of it as a second passive because it's entirely different than the first passive. This passive looks very good with this champion, and the reason why is because he's placing an unkillable buff. Now, unkillable buffs allow you to take damage, but not die. So you can get all the way down to 1 HP, and then you just won't die even if you're hit 100 times, as long as you still have the buff up. So what that means is you may be able to create this team that operates below 20% HP, and then he's just giving you a flat damage bonus to every single champion who is below 20% HP. So that could be used in Clan Boss. That could also potentially be used in Arena. You could use it in wave content. So that's really interesting. He'd also probably synergize with champions like Skullcrown and Leorius the Proud, who have their own unkillable buffs and often are operating below 20% HP anyway. Okay, now his aura increases ally HP in all battles by 30%. That's nice synergy with his own kit, and it also increases survivability of the entire team and makes his own shields larger. So really good synergy here. This guy seems like a phenomenal champion. He is Void Affinity, so that is always a nice bonus. And we don't have a lot of opportunities as free-to-play players and low spenders to get Void Legendary champions, right? We're not going to pull too many from shards. And although there are a few that come as rewards, we don't see Void Legendaries as fusions too often, maybe a couple a year. You know, so out of the 12 champions that you see, you might get 2 or 3 Voids a year. So this is a really nice opportunity to pick up another Void Legendary. And in the Sylvan Watchers faction, because the faction crypt just launched. So this guy's going to do also a lot of work for you in that faction crypt. So very good opportunity to pick yourself up a top tier Void Legendary. I think he's going to be a great champion. All right, I want to show you something that this kit has reminded me of. Now, we talked about an unkillable clan boss team, and I'm going to show you my unkillable clan boss team right now. You can see right here that I have already done my Ultra Nightmare clan boss key for the day. I have one keyed up here. Now, this is actually not my main team. This is the team I specifically use for Spirit Affinity clan boss, but I'm going to show you my main team. So my main team is actually this team here. Now, you can see that the difference between these two teams is only a substitution of one champion. I take out Renegade from the full auto clan boss team here, and I put in Demitha in the Affinity clan boss team here. And basically, Demitha helps remove the slow that the Spirit Affinity clan boss puts on my entire team. I didn't have to use Demitha. I could have used another champion, but I got Demitha recently, and I really wanted to put her in a clan boss team, so I did. That being said, this team doesn't really matter that much. Like, the composition doesn't matter that much. But what you can see is in both cases, I have Helicath, who is providing the unkillable block damage buff there. So it's not an unkillable buff, it's a block damage buff, but that makes the team unkillable. So it is an unkillable buff, right? And if we look at Helicath, what we'll see is when we look at his skills that his A2, I'm sorry, it's the A3. The A3 places a block damage buff on all allies for 2 turns on a 4 turn cooldown. So this is the exact same setup as Trunkheart, right? So Emic Trunkheart places an unkillable buff on all allies for 2 turns on a 4 turn cooldown. So it feels like you have the potential to take any Helicath speed tune and place Emic Trunkheart in his place and still have it go. Now, you might have to change the priority of skills because you know, the skills are different on each champion, and the cooldowns may affect the speed tune a little bit depending on how they're prioritized in the AI. So you do want to consider that, but it seems like a relatively easy substitution. Now, there is one thing to consider about this speed tune. Now, the Helicath speed tunes, if you're not using another block damage champion, they rely on the shield on the shield, which is the A2, to prevent your stun target from dying. So on the stun hit of the clan boss, you do not have a block damage buff up. This only works for 2 turns. So on the 3rd attack, the hit actually goes through. But because Helicath places this shield and the shield is relatively large, usually the clan boss doesn't work his way through the entire shield. And it doesn't really matter which champion gets hit because the shield is strong enough to take the full brunt of the stun attack. That being said, I have noticed probably around turn 46 or 47, my champion starts taking a little bit of damage. The shield breaks and the champion will take a tiny bit of damage for the last 3 or 4 turns. However, the champion's natural defenses are enough to survive that 1 or 2 stun hits that actually happen. So this also feels similar to Emic Trunkheart. Like, Trunkheart also has a shield that is an AoE that lasts for 2 turns, and that's why he seems so similar to Helicath, even though he's placing an unkillable buff and not a block damage buff. The other benefit of Emic Trunkheart is obviously that taunt that's going to allow him to I'm pretty sure, that's going to allow him to prioritize himself as the stun target. And then additionally, he is a void champion, so you don't have to worry about things, going off the rails because of a change in affinity. He's going to be basically acting the same against every affinity of clan boss. You will still probably have to figure out a solution for the Spirit Affinity clan boss slow that he puts out there. But otherwise, it feels like Emic Trunkheart is really maybe even a little bit better than Helicath, which is a crazy thing for me to say because I think Helicath is one of the best champions in the game. So this guy seems like the real deal. Okay, so that is it for this video. I would definitely recommend that if you can go after this champion, you do go after this champion. Just a quick reminder, like I mentioned at the top of the video, I will be doing a new video on preparing for a fusion and also calculating whether you have the resources that you need for a fusion event. If you've never done one before, this could be a good introduction for you to go after this champion or to judge whether or not you shouldn't waste resources. Because no matter how good this champion is, if you can't actually complete the fusion, it just isn't worth investing all those resources. It's better to save for a future fusion event. Remember, there's a fusion champion every month, so even if you can't go after a really good one, next month there might be one that's just as good. Last month was Newt, who was a great champion, but if you missed him and you saved resources, and now you can go after Trunkheart, you're going to be feeling pretty good about that. So definitely watch for that video. If you want, go ahead and subscribe so you can get a notification when that video goes up. I want to thank everybody for watching my videos. It's been a great ride so far. I'm loving the comments. There's a lot of enthusiasm with the viewers of the channel. I just really appreciate that and want to say thank you. Definitely let me know in the comments below if you have questions about fusions, if you have questions about this particular champion, or if you have a suggestion for another video that you would like to see me do in the near future. I've been Colred. Thanks for hanging out. I will definitely see you in another video very soon.